Hi, my name's Andrew. In this video, I wanted to talk a bit about the importance of meditation and I suppose incorporating an aspect of what I will just simply call, spiritual aspect of our lives. And now that doesn't mean to, join a church or a synagogue or a mosque or anything like that. Spirituality itself is really such a big topic in a way, but also very simple in others. I suppose to simplify it, it's connecting into an aspect of ourselves, if we want to call it that. Let's say it's the most perfect version of ourselves, the highest ideal you can think of yourself, which already resides within you. So we look at this in terms of our conscious awareness and how we act and behave. Well, I think if we sort of look at how sometimes when people get really, really drunk and they don't behave particularly well in different ways, whether it's violence or just silliness. So we could say that that's a lower aspect of ourself, a lower aspect of our consciousness. So going the opposite side of that, what's the highest version of ourselves? So in a sense, some people might say that's unlimited, or not even. Maybe some people might think it's not possible. But whether we can live in that state permanently or not, it's not the point. It's actually reaching towards a higher ideal of ourselves. So meditation is a very, very useful tool in this regard, because anyone who's done meditation for quite some time will sort of realize these different sort of states of mind that we can go in. And I mean, a lot of benefits from meditating, there's no doubt about it. So in the Western world, we have the meditation's been seen mainly as a way to soothe the mind, I suppose, with mindfulness. And there's nothing wrong with that at all. There definitely are a lot of wonderful things that come from meditation itself. Then there's more of a deeper side to it. So we'll call the Western side more control meditation, controlling ourselves, our mind, all that sort of stuff. There's an aspect of that obviously in the Eastern side, but in the deeper Eastern aspects of meditation, we'll get into what we'll call contact meditation. And that's connecting or contacting with inside ourselves, this higher aspect of ourselves. And that's given many different names over time. And I'll use a sort of more modern day terminology to begin with. And that's if we focus our attention into the prefrontal cortex of our brain, and you can look that up just on a Google Images to see where that's located, but it's generally located here, which is, if we go to the Eastern aspects, I'll refer to that as the third eye. So some of you may have heard of the third eye before, has other names as well. And another one I'll throw out there for you, and those of you who may be watching who are perhaps of a religious type background may find this a little bit hard to adapt to, but particularly of a Christian one, is that this is also the kingdom of heaven. Okay, this is where it is. It's located within inside yourself. So, without getting too too biblical about it, too churchy about it, I mean, Jesus did himself mention this. That seek the kingdom of heaven first, and all things will be given unto you. He also talked about the kingdom of heaven being within us. And anyway, there's a number of different texts that are rather interesting, and perhaps I'll do a whole video on that one time. Again, I know that that's not something everybody is going to accept, but the terminologies I've used to describe the same thing, it's just semantics, it's just different words to describing the same experience. But this is often referred to here as a seat of concentration. So it's generally not the between the eyebrows that we're so much concentrating on, but coming in a little, going there and then in a little bit, because as I said, if you look at a drawing of the brain, side on, you'll see that there is the prefrontal cortex, and that's where we focus on, the seat of concentration. So you think anytime anyone's concentrating and they're thinking about something, they're all highbrows and everything though, and they're thinking up here. So that's what we're doing. We're concentrating the best we can here. Now, what's interesting about this is that the more we relax our body, which is a really important part of meditation, to be relaxed, just to relax, and anyone who's done any meditation before will know that the aspects of the mind, you just can't seem to concentrate sometimes. It's very difficult at times. But that's also a bit like when you're learning an instrument, that you need to spend time just getting used to it, getting your fingers adjusted to the fretboard or whatever it is, or whatever you're playing. So meditation is no different. It's not like you're just going to just be a perfect meditator immediately. I doubt that's the case with anybody. I really find that very hard to believe. That's impossible. So I remember many years ago, I was talking to a Buddhist monk. Spent an afternoon with him where I used to live, up at their temple. And had a very interesting conversation, that's for sure. But one of the things he told me was when he first was training, they had to meditate 20 hours a day. And he said some days, he said you'd get into the first hour, within the first hour, if you couldn't settle your mind, he said you knew the next 19 weren't going to be any better. So sometimes I had off days too. And I still can say that too as a meditator for many, many years, that I still find that sometimes, some days I think, wow, I just really can't seem to, you know, get this control of my mind today. And that doesn't happen all the time, but it does happen sometimes for whatever reason. I don't know the reason for it. But what I'm trying to get at here is that meditation does have that benefit of calming the mind and senses. And the longer you do it, the more you do it, the more you'll find a sense of calmness that comes over you anyway. And even if your mind wandering, it just doesn't really matter, because it's the practice of concentration. Okay, that's what you're doing. You're just concentrating to try not to go too far off. And what will happen is, as time goes on, you'll find that happens less and less, and for shorter periods of time before you go, oh, my mind's wandered off, I'll come back to concentrating. It's just, all you're doing is just becoming aware that you're going off, and then coming back and going off. It's pretty simple in that regard. I mean, I know there's many different sort of meditations out there, but I mean, they're all essentially got the same sort of aspect to them in one way or another. But I'm not going to delve into all the different ones at this point in time. It's very simple in itself, but just having that ability to focus our attention there. But the thing is too, now this is not necessarily going to be everyone's taste when I say this, and I understand why, but I've done a lot of study into different texts over the years, and studied, well, I'm doing a master's at the moment, getting there, in metaphysical science. So I've studied a lot of aspects of things beyond our general five senses, for instance. Now, studying is one thing, but actually experiencing things is another, which is what I was really more interested in. But through reading, flicking through the Bible again, I found, what Jesus was talk about, no one enters the kingdom of heaven except he who does the will of, God or Father in heaven, or whatever it is, however you want to define it, okay? Or Divine Mother, whatever you like. The point here is, what is he talking about? He's talking about surrendering yourself to that higher aspect of yourself. So that's what I just decided to do years and years ago daily. I thought, well, what I'll do is I'll do that. I thought I'll put what he said to the test. I thought, all right, I'm going to focus on the third eye region, the prefrontal cortex, and put all my attention there. And then I am going to, at some point during the meditation, I'm going to just surrender myself completely to this higher aspect of myself. Not outside of myself, completely within inside myself. There's a higher aspect of myself, and I am focusing on it, and I'm surrendering to it. Let that aspect of the will of my higher self be done. Not my lower self, not my intellectual mind that gets all sort of thrown one way or the other. I should be doing this, should be doing that. I need this to be happy, or whatever it is. All the things. We've all got these things going on. When you get beyond that, and you start to, well, a number of things, a lot of the things that we think we want come from external ideas that have been put into us through, whether it's advertising or conditioning, growing up, or whatever it is. We've all got something until we get beyond it and see through it. But if we bypass all that and think, well, it's a bit like when people do like manifestation with law of attraction type things as well. They talk about all these different techniques, focusing on this and that, and all the the to-do list of goodies that they want to acquire. And I should do a whole video on this in itself. That's okay. I get that. But again, how do you really know that what you want is really good for you? You might get it and it might be good for a while, but how things we thought we want can actually turn around and not be so great for us. So I'm not sure if many of you can relate to the experience like that in your life. It may have been a relationship. It may have been like, so this is what I really wanted, and you got into it, and then it's turned out to be not so good after all. But who got you into that to begin with? Probably your intellect and your heart and all that sort of stuff to some degree. Anyway, but what you thought you want, this illusion of what you thought you wanted. So the same sort of thing. A lot of time we go through our lives thinking, oh, I want this thing and that thing and whatever. And look, maybe you do. But the thing is, even all the things we do think we want, they only have a certain lifespan of finding or giving us this fulfillment that we seek before we want something different or something new again. And I'm probably going a bit of a tangent here. I'm trying not to lose my initial thought here, but because I've got a lot to say about these different topics. But so Okay, so you're bypassing all the intellect, coming back to the aspect of the higher self. Well, if we just give all of that over to our higher self and just say, give me the perfect of everything. I need a house? Cool. Just give me the perfect version of that in the perfect location, whatever's perfect for me. You want a relationship? Give me the perfect version. I'll give thanks for the perfect version. That sort of thing. Again, not trying to get too deep into the manifestation aspect of this, but you'll realize that the amount of foolishness we even do in just this manifestation process, if we just keep on focusing on this higher aspect of ourselves and just surrendering to it daily, and you just never know how the things will unfold for you. It's quite interesting. I've noticed over the years, and sometimes things come along and you're not really sure if this is really what you wanted or not, or maybe things are falling apart a little bit around you. But as time goes on, a little bit of wisdom, you kind of go, okay, well, I know what I've been doing daily is wanting the best, wanting to be a better version of myself, whatever it is. That sometimes things have to fall away, things have to fall apart a little bit, sometimes a lot to get those things. But in time, you see, and you look back and you go, I can see that now. But it's quite a interesting, mysterious thing in a regard to think that all you're doing is focusing on your third eye region and connecting in that way, and then surrendering yourself to this higher aspect of yourself, and then things seem to come into your life and go out of your life that aren't serving you, I suppose. But it's something I do encourage people to do at least is, if you don't feel comfortable surrendering to whatever your aspect of higher self is, I mean, you can use any word there, the universe, universal intelligence, you can use the word God if that suits you, whatever you like. We're talking about the same thing here, that's the point we're getting at. Again, there are a lot of scriptural references to this, which is rather interesting. I find the Bible rather interesting in that regard, because there are some very deep, profound things in there, which you're not generally going to find within Christianity. So if anyone's watching that, finding that offensive, I can understand that. That's all right. You're at where you're at. I've been around all that stuff for a long time, and I can see how limited it is, and I only try to share these things to help people get into this deeper aspect to grow, So I really do recommend people meditate, spend time in meditation. As I said, at the very basics, it's very, very calming and soothing for yourself anyway. It has a lot of wonderful attributes in your daily life. A lot of clarity can come. And often we have so much of listening to this, listening to that, watching this, watching that, talking to people. We don't have a lot of space in our minds, in our thinking, to allow, in the silence, wonderful things to come. And they may come during meditation, but sometimes they come later. And the more silence you seem to have in your life, and I'm not talking about, like I'm sitting, although you can't see it, I'm sitting with a beautiful beach right in front of me, palm trees and all the beautiful sounds when I'm down there with all the water, and it's very, very relaxing. I'm not talking about nature, the sounds of nature in that regard. I'm talking about all the busyness, all the things that we've created, with all putting on the music and listening to this audio thing and all that. And there's nothing wrong with those things, but I have noticed, and I've done it myself too, we can just consume way too much content, and this higher aspect of ourselves seems to come through a lot easier when we have a lot more silence in our lives, and you make these insights. I mean, you may just be outside gardening, and then, I don't know, all these things just come in your mind in the silence, and just, pulling up weeds or whatever it is, and then it just comes to you, all these sort of insights and realizations. And it's a really important thing as a part of maintaining our mental health. And I mean, that's a big part of what dreaming is too. When we go to sleep, when we got to get enough sleep to dream, is that self-regulating to pull us all back into a bit of balance. So it's why sleep in itself is important. But yeah, spirituality, look, it can be related to religion to some degree, but to be honest, my experience of that, it's very few and far between. You don't need to go to any kind of church or religion, which is all very dogmatic, and in my opinion keeps most people locked down and and limited. And I mean, I've seen it many different ways, whether it's guilt and shame or fear or whatever it is. That's no good. That's not it. That's keeping you locked down. Okay. And if you're in any kind of place like that, well, maybe you should consider looking at that, if that's a healthy environment to be in, because very controlling, and we see it in many different ways. So a lot of religions are like that, and the first step with anything is becoming aware of it and then accepting it as true. So that's not really my opinion. I've seen it enough to see what happens to people in a lot of institutions. I'm not against it. I'm not saying never go, but you are your own person. That's the thing. Don't let anybody try to control you. So, putting them on a pedestal of any kind. The truth is, you are your own religion. And if you look within inside yourself, with this focusing, when you're closing your eyes and focusing on the third eye for periods of time, you'll start to realize, well, the more you do it, the more you'll start to realize your own power and truth will come through to you. But I want to talk about that in maybe another step too, that I've told you to focus on the third eye region. But there's also another thing you can do, which makes this far more powerful. So there is a science behind this, and it's often referred to as heart-brain coherence, where the heart and the brain are communicating in balance, synchronicity with one another, if you want to call it that. And we can do that very easily, and there's a lot of health benefits of doing so. But when you go to, well, before you even really get into a deeper state of meditation as you practice, mind you, just to throw that out there, I recommend at least 20 minutes a day of meditation. In one sitting you can do it. You can do some guided ones, but maybe mix them up. Don't do them all guided. Just have some time by yourself to rest the mind and see what comes up. But the thing I was going to say is emotion. If you can feel in your heart any kind of elevated emotion like joy, you can do this. You can give yourself any emotion you like, actually, if you practice it, because anytime you felt any emotion, it's always come from within you. Yes, there may have been something external to yourself that made that come out, but it was already within you. So we can draw that forth. So what we want to do is, I often do this, I just close my eyes, and sometimes I just put my hand over my heart, and I hold it there, and I just feel in my heart, and I just try and feel a sense of love. You can remember what it feels like to be, when you're first in love. Doesn't matter if you're still in love with that person or not. If you can do it and still feel that feeling, or someone that you love or are in love with at the moment, or sense of joy about anyone or anything, just a really uplifted emotion. You can even just sort of relax. You can even feel a state of bliss. You can do that as possible. The thing is, you want to just focus on how good it feels through your entire body to feel this joy, this love, this bliss. Just let it radiate through all parts of your body, from your heart up through your mind, your brain, and just feel it. Just feel it. See if you can. Just try and feel it. Even see if you can feel it's outside of your body. You can feel this slight sort of energy, I suppose. You can feel it. It's like there's a subtle feeling you can feel around outside your body. You can sense something. Just notice that. Any part of your body, around your fingers, your hands, whatever. Notice it surrounds your entire body. And you can focus in on that. So then you feel these elevated emotions. And as you feel that elevated emotion, I just like to sort of feel it, like I'm pushing it up into my brain. And then I just focus and look up in my mind towards there. And I just sense that aspect within my brain, the prefrontal cortex. I try and feel there with this elevated emotion, and then go into meditation with that. If you want to add a bit more to it, you can just completely visualize your entire body filled with a white radiant light. It's going through your entire body. You're in it, it's around you, it's emerging you, it's all through you. You can do that as a visualization technique too. That's very powerful stuff. I'm sort of going a little bit off track here with it. That's just simple. But the thing about the elevated emotion, it's very powerful. It's a very, very powerful thing. And we can see that when we look at the science of what happens when we do this with the physiology of our body. That's the immune response in our body. I think it's the LJ in the saliva or something, goes up by, I think on average it's about 43%, but some people 200% increases. It's like an immune response in a sense, and it lasts for up to 6 hours. Just by doing this, just getting the heart brain, just feeling good in the heart, and it goes up to the brain. And that's just very powerful. And you only really need to do that for about 3 minutes a day. But if you can just feel that to begin with, and then just go into meditation, just focus as best as you can, just, on the third eye region, just keep you there, and just, that's it. Just put your attention there. I'll use a scriptural reference then. I think Jesus said something about, he said, yeah, so no one enters the kingdom of heaven except he who does the will of God, or Father, or whatever. And I think he says, seek the kingdom of heaven first, and all things will be given unto you. All things. So you might be wondering why that is. Well, that's because you're essentially just giving yourself up to this higher aspect of yourself, which is within you anyway. Which is, the funny thing about this is that by giving up your personal will to this higher aspect of yourself, you end up doing what you want to do to begin with anyway. Because you're not using your intellect to sort of limit yourself. And that's why I always say, well, I just accept and expect the perfect everything. That doesn't mean I don't have a few bumps in the road still along the way, and I understand why some of those things come, for me particularly. But overall, I think, when I look at my life now, I think, not only am I a very different person, like a very different man, I still look at that, reflect on this, and think, wow, I've changed in a wonderful way, in so many ways, over the years. And then I look at where I am now. I live in paradise. I live in paradise. I'm still, every day I wake up, looking out at the water at the moment, and it's just, can't believe where I am. It's such a beautiful place to be. In the tropics, palm trees, just calm, relaxed, easy as. It's amazing. Like it's winter at the moment, and I'm warm as. It's amazing. Then I was, how I got here, it's been an adventure. Anyway, that's a whole another thing. But I know that's very deeply related to, just that practice of just giving myself up every day. So really, coming back to this idea of spirituality, it's really nothing that much more complicated on a basic level than connecting you with a higher aspect of yourself. Now, I'll go into big talks about that in different levels, in different ways, and I know maybe I'll do so. But I'm just trying to show people that people have different ideas about it. I guess there'll be a lot of different ideas even from what I'm sharing with you today, of course. But I'm trying to show that it's very simple in that regard, that there's nothing really outside yourself you're trying to chase. It's not like this thing, if you're an atheist, for instance, like this thing that, a lot of religions sort of, there's this, man on a cloud, called God, grey beard, looking down and judging everybody. It's not like that. It's actually all happening inside yourself. And I don't know how far I should go with this, but I mean, we live in a conscious universe. The entire universe is conscious, and we know that through science. There's this in this consciousness, and it's in everything, everywhere. It's within you, and you can do certain meditations too, where you become very aware of that no matter how much you strip away from your thinking, your thoughts, the own story of yourself, you'll get to this place within inside yourself where there's just an awareness, and it's really a lot of time only our thinking and personal attributes that we have or hold, that we can change a lot of those anyway, is that we find that, sorry, I just got a notification there, threw me off. We'll find that, sorry about that, it did throw me off a bit there. So just talking about consciousness. So once we strip away all these things, we'll find that this is awareness within ourselves. It's just always there. It's just something that's always deep within us, this awareness, this consciousness that some people would call, refer to it as our true self. And I can see that absolutely. Anyway, that's a whole nother thing. Anyway, what I'm trying to share here is that spirituality is nothing to do with religion. It can be, but it's so void a lot of the time in these institutions. It's really how we live our lives. Do we live them in the higher aspect of ourselves, or don't we? And we can know that by how much sense of joy we live each day within us, because that aspect of ourselves, the higher aspect of ourselves, is a sense of joy. There's a lot of joy in that. You can go through your days just beaming with light within inside. I just feel it, just radiating it out of you, this beautiful joy. And that's what I'm just trying to share with everybody here, that although we take care of our physical body and our mind, there is a spiritual aspect. And I find this rather interesting sometimes too, with people I've been talking to who, by all worldly measures, I suppose, would say this person has everything, and yet they can be quite depressed and quite down. And it may not be to do so much with their diet or anything like that, maybe a little bit perhaps, but there's this sense of this void within themselves. And that happens with everybody, whether they've got supposedly everything or not. That can happen with anybody. But this aspect within ourselves, we can find a lot of peace in that. And that I think this, whatever you want to call the word, this other aspect, this consciousness within the true self, you want to call it soul or whatever you want to call it, different words. I don't want to get people lost in semantics of whatever it is. Just whatever your general idea of it. You'll sense this too if you practice this. You'll see this for yourself eventually. You'll know this. That it's this important aspect of ourselves that is not exclusive to our physical and mental aspects of our lives. It's something that, we call it a soul. Some people, you may have heard this before, soul's purpose. That's another whole topic in itself. But sometimes when we're not living up to what our deeper self wants to do, our soul, higher self, whatever it is, wants to do, and we're going against it, we'll feel a sense of restlessness in life. We won't find this peace that we're looking for. And it's only because we're going counter to who and what we truly are. And the more we focus on that, the more we sort of seek this aspect of ourselves and say, I want to do the will of my higher self. I want to release and surrender all of this lower aspect of ourselves, all of the confusion, all the intellectual aspects that are confusing me, all of the just emotional things that are confusing me. I'm going to surrender all those things up to my higher aspect of self. Let them all go, and let that higher aspect of myself then take control and do as it will through me. Anyway, I'm going to leave this here, and I will talk some more depth about different meditations and stuff, but it's very simple. You just spend some time, quiet time for yourself, and just focus on that aspect of yourself, and the higher aspect of yourself in the third eye region, the prefrontal cortex. Just put your attention there as best you can. And, excuse me, even if you feel like it's not doing much, even if you feel like it's, your mind's been wandering all over the place, well, it's part of the practice, and you will get better. And even though you feel like you're not doing any good, the very beginning of doing it at all is actually helping you. Believe it or not, it actually is. So anyway, I'll leave this here. And I made this video really in relation to some of the videos I've already done about mental health. But there is this aspect of the spiritual health, this focusing in on this other aspect of our mind, to get beyond the lower aspect of mind, the confusions and that, and focusing on this higher ideal of ourselves, which does already exist within us. So it's not really surrendering your power to anything outside yourself. It's just surrendering your power from the lower self up to the higher self. That's it. I said you can use whatever word you like. It really doesn't matter what we call things. It's you'll find this to be the truth for yourself, and don't take anyone's word for anything, including me. But you'll find this for yourself. I mean, this is what yoga should be about. I know we've got a westernized version of it now, but what yoga really is about, it's a science of connecting with this higher aspect of ourselves. Some people won't use the word divine or whatever. I know these have a lot of religious connotations and can put people off somewhat. But I don't want you to think like that. Use whatever word you like. Use a scientific word. Just focusing on the prefrontal cortex, the seat of concentration inside yourself, this higher aspect of yourself, the higher ideal. All of the best versions of yourself are within you already. And that's all we're doing. We're not giving away our power. We're actually gaining our power by giving up the lower aspect of ourselves, and that's a journey in itself, for a number of reasons. Anyway, I'm going to leave this here. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I look forward to making another video.